Well, any military attack on Iraq is likely to send oil prices into spin, which might explain why the American Energy Secretary, I should say, found himself in Azerbaijan today. Spencer Abraham was attending a ceremony to mark the beginning of work on a pipeline to transport oil from the Caspian Sea into Turkey. Well, what's that got to do with the United States? Well, tomorrow OPEC ministers gather in Japan for a policy meeting, and the new pipeline is central to Western strategies of decreasing reliance on oil from the Middle East. Here's our business correspondent, Jonathan Rugman.
In Baku today, America's Energy Secretary with a shovel in his hand alongside the presidents of Azerbaijan, Turkey and Georgia, starting work on a hugely symbolic pipeline designed to reduce the West's dependency on oil from the Middle East. Never mind that Azerbaijan's 79-year-old president Haydar Aliyev is an ex-KGB general and Moscow Politburo member with little grasp of democracy. The West wants to pipe out the black gold he controls.
It will provide a link, a very important link from the region, from the Caspian Basin to the European markets, and that is of paramount importance.
Oil is Azerbaijan's only significant commodity, drilling over the last century devastating the country's Caspian coastline. By contrast, neighbouring Turkey, a key US ally, has almost no oil at all, and so a plan to link the two in a project which President Bush says will increase the world's energy security. The pipeline is the longest BP has ever operated. It will stretch 1,100 miles from the Azeri capital Baku through Georgia to Ceyhan on the Turkish coast, bypassing Russia and Iran. The most direct route would have been to the Gulf through Iran, but that was politically unacceptable to the United States. With BP as consortium leader, financing for the $3 billion project may come in part from the World Bank and from the European Bank for Reconstruction. In both cases, the United States is the biggest shareholder. It's not the safest of routes. Azerbaijan and neighbouring Armenia have been at war. Georgia is at home to at least 3 ethnic insurgencies, while Kurdish fighters down in Turkey are holding a shaky ceasefire. When the pipeline opens at the end of 2005, it will carry nearly 500,000 barrels a day. That will rise, but compare it with the Persian Gulf's daily capacity, 22 billion barrels. Several Azeri exploration wells have failed to come up with oil, and the country's reserves are thought to be just 1/3 of the size of Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan further east. In fact, what the West could really do with is a pipeline from Kazakhstan linking up to the pipeline from Baku. But given disputes over the Caspian's ownership and resistance from Russia and Iran, that's a pipeline which may never get built. Today, Russia's foreign minister said his country would not be crowded out of a region with which it had historic ties. It's taken 8 years for the Russians to accept the pipeline to Turkey, which wouldn't happen at all if it weren't for the Americans.
A route through Iran wouldn't provide this very important link from Azerbaijan, from the Caspian Basin to the Mediterranean Sea.
Isn't the truth of the matter, Ambassador, the reason they didn't do the route through Iran? Because the Americans said, no, we're not going to let you have it.
Well, certainly we do, pay very serious attention to our American partners in the project, and particularly bearing in mind that not only the United States is a very close partner of Azerbaijan, apart from that there are American companies which are active in the project.
It's not just a case of shoring up alliances with the leaders of Turkey, Georgia and Azerbaijan, all of them aging patriarchs presiding over potentially unstable states. Britain's North Sea fields won't go on forever, and nobody these days wants to rely on Saudi Arabia or Iraq.
It's obviously in our interest to have as diverse a range of sources as possible, and that in turn means it's very much in our interest that British companies should be involved, and that the British government should work constructively with the government of these countries to ensure that the necessary infrastructure is in place.
Just how much oil these Azeri fields will pump is questionable, and the pipeline is bitterly opposed by the environmental movement. But there are so many vested regional interests, it seems the new pipeline will at last be built.